Hey, everybody. So today we have a very special guest. His name is Anup. And if you have not heard about him, I highly suggest you go check out his LinkedIn profile or Twitter or somewhere else. Anup is a extremely accomplished man. And he right now is he's a managing partner of a venture called Orios Ventures, one of the top VC funds within India. And I'm very excited to have him here with us today to share his journey of how he got to where he is. So Anup, thank you so much for joining us today.
Hey, thanks, Fran. My pleasure.
Okay. So let's jump in all the way to the beginning. Before where you are now, before Oreo, before Yum Brands, before everything else, where are you from and what was your upbringing like?
So I'm from India. And I grew up in New Delhi. I was born over here. And my parents were both in academics. They were university professors. So my dad used to teach physics. He's not with us anymore, but my mother used to teach economics. So I had a pretty humble, typical middle-class upbringing, as one would call it in India. Me and my sister, we are two siblings. And both of us were encouraged to study and, make a life out of that. So that's what I've been doing in the first part of my life, which has been a good student and tried to learn as much as I could. And I chose science as a stream because it interested me. Also, it was engineering and medicine were two very popular streams. I'm sure you can relate to the number of Indians who work in such disciplines related to engineering and STEM in the US. So it was the right stream to be in. And I think that's what excited me at that point of time as well. So I went into that, did my engineering, did mechanical engineering here in the University of Delhi. And then did my MBA subsequently with a year of work experience in the middle. And then started off my career with Procter & Gamble here in India. And worked with them and then with subsequently multiple companies leading to a corporate career of about 2 decades, ending with Yum Brands, where I worked with them in chief marketing roles in Pizza Hut, which is their flagship brand in India as well as Australia and New Zealand. I also worked with Bata, which is a footwear company in India, again in a CXO role. So, and then after that, I've been in the field of investing. Worked as a private investor, helping companies and entrepreneurs move forward with their goals, basically bringing my experience of the past 2 decades to bear upon their own journey. And they were looking for help of the kind that I could provide. So I was very happy that there was a fit. And I've personally found it extremely satisfying, more fulfilling, and more exciting than a typical 9-to-5 desk job or a typical corporate job. I think those roles are good to start with, but I think I was looking for something which was giving me far greater satisfaction than just fulfilling a role in a large corporation. So here in smaller companies, I tend to sort of find the whole journey more satisfying. You can make a bigger impact, and that's what attracted me. So somewhere along the way, I got to work with some very exciting companies, one in the agri space, one in digital, one in the B2B space, startups, and one in the HR space, very diverse from all that I had done before, which is selling footwear and selling, pizzas and what have you, and cosmetics. So I was pretty excited to be here, learn something new, contribute something new. And now, for the past 1 year, I've been with Orios Ventures Partners, joined them as managing partner in June this year, after spending a considerable amount of time with the team, starting last year in October 2017. And very excited about the Indian startup ecosystem, which is creating massive disruption for consumers, creating value for all stakeholders, and very excited and feeling very fulfilled to be part of that.
Wow.
And and that's why I'm here. I think I'd rather do a job, not for the sake of earning money, but money is incidental. I'd first try to get something out of it, and for that, I think one looks for what is it that you really want to do, what really satisfies you, and For me, I think helping people grow, helping people succeed, and helping companies grow, make an impact, bring something new to the world. That really is far more fulfilling to me than anything else.
Well, I just love that whole brief synopsis of everything that you accomplished in such a short time span. That's incredible. So many lessons learned along the way. One thing you just mentioned right now, currently, I think is absolutely fascinating, is a sense of extrinsic and intrinsic motivation and value. You said that it's not about the money, but more in the sense that the intrinsic motivation and you have to helping other companies grow and helping other people grow. So it's like the question is like this, to motivate a person to go ahead and accomplish his goals, or to motivate an employee, for example. How much does it? Obviously, intrinsic motivation is the biggest factor. But how do you get to motivate someone internally to go ahead and to accomplish his goals, to go ahead and to push forward and everything?
Yeah, I think every human being is wired in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and there are motivators and demotivators for each one of us. And if one is managing a team, or if one is partnering with someone, one's got to really understand what drives them, right? What brings them here. And you've got to make the drivers, really exciting. And you've got to push those buttons all the time, because that's what brings people to work in a motivated fashion every day, gets them out of bed, and makes them feel like, hey, I want to go to work and make a difference. And yes, you've got to manage and recognize demotivators whenever you see them, and make sure that they don't become the bigger picture, right, at any point in time. So as a leader, I think that's the principal job that every leader has to manage motivations and keep the demotivators at bay. And it's not for me to do it. It's to enable people to find their own solutions so that they can do it themselves.
Correct. But as a leader, you could direct it in the right path. So it goes back to another question. So the culture of a company obviously plays a big impact. Part of that aspect of the person having the drive and motivation to come to work. So how could someone go about building a phenomenal culture? And I'm sure, as you've been all around the world, you've experienced so much, you've been in so many amounts of companies that you've experienced culture in so many different ways. So how did someone go about building a great culture?
Yeah, I think the bedrock of all cultures is a value system, right? And values, how do you define values, right? Values is essentially principles, right? On the basis of which you decide how you're going to act or behave given the same situation versus someone else if they were placed in the same situation. So if you have a shared system of values, then you can say that you belong to the same culture, right? And so therefore the way you act, behave, to certain situations will be different as a different culture, right? And that's what defines everything. So what you see is the is the other half of the iceberg, which is all the manifestations of it, which is the behaviors and the language and how we smile and how we react, how we get emotional, or how we dismiss something. But at the bedrock of it is this value system. So what makes a great culture is for the leaders to sit down and really think about what's the kind of culture that they would like to have, and therefore what are the kind of values they would want people working in an organization to share with each other, right? Mm-hmm. And once you have that, and everybody signs up on the dotted line, so to speak, because nobody really signs a document, but you look at those principles and values and say, well, this is what works in this place, and this is what is not expected of anyone in this place. And that's when you get the right employee through the front door, and employees who never leave, or partners who never leave. So typically I've found that, great relationships at work also result from maybe mini or subcultures within cultures, right? Because people have intense sort of shared sense of belonging around certain values more than with someone else, right? And that's why they feel that they can really relate to that person. They can be open and vulnerable about their feelings and their weaknesses, etc. So I think the cultures make you feel secure. And the reason for that is that everybody is guided by the same values. And these define the boundaries and decide what's right and what's wrong.
Right. Well, that's absolutely 100% phenomenal. And the question is making sure that people that we know what our values are and it aligns with the company that we're working with. Because we work together we work for 80 years, let's say. And we work for and most people, I don't know how it is in India, I'm learning more, but in America, the average person would change jobs 10 times. And most of the time is because of a lack of culture fit. So I say it's not just the company that can connect with the employee, but the employee connect with the company too. It has to be a match together.
But that's absolutely correct. Yeah.
So let's take a step back, and so you work right after college. You worked for 4 years for Procter and Gamble, and then you decided to take an entrepreneurial plunge and start a online e-commerce company called India. So first of all, you were one of the first pioneers to start an e-commerce company in India, from my understanding.
Yeah, look, I was part of the early team. I won't say I founded the company, but I was a brand manager at India.com. And yes, I did take the entrepreneurial plunge because something inside me makes me want to be in places where I can create or be a part of something that's going to create a bigger impact.
And where would you say that drive comes from?
I think it's like I said, every human being is sort of wired in a different way.
Right.
And, all of us have different achievement orientations, right? And my sense of achievement gets really heightened if the impact that I can see is going to be far greater. I like bringing new things to the world. Now, some people are great at maintaining things as they are, and we need them too. It's not like we don't need them. So it's just that there are a few of us, let's call them the mad ones, like me, who derive a greater sense of fulfillment about bringing new and disruptive ideas into the world. And yeah, that's just me.
So we accept you the way you are. It's amazing,
Thanks.
It's about entrepreneurship. If you're not an entrepreneur or doing something that's to enhance that ecosystem, you're not bringing innovation into the world. Now, entrepreneur doesn't necessarily mean you have to found a tech company. The guy that's your micro entrepreneur driving for Uber or starting an Amazon company or selling groceries on your local corner is an entrepreneur too. That's bringing further innovation to bring the whole ecosystem and continue to further. But in order to be but the only entrepreneurs, and this includes scientists and professors, are furthering that innovation and have that sense to accomplish more, like you just mentioned a lot. So what are some of the lessons that, you went back, obviously you weren't in corporate life, and then you had this big yearning and desire to accomplish more and to make a real impact in the world. What are the lessons that you take together? Well, first of all, was it a hard transition from corporate into entrepreneurship?
Yes, and no. So it was a bit of a mixed bag, and I think it is that way for many people. Because if you've been in corporate life, what you get used to is a calendar, right? It's a way of working. It's a way of life. You get up in the morning, Mondays are going to be like that. Wednesdays are going to be like that. Of course, there's ups and downs, but life is pretty much regimented. And there's a way of working that you're fitting your own schedule into, right? Because it's a larger organization, which is at work, of which you're only one part. Now, when you're making that transition to being an entrepreneur, suddenly you find that on one hand, there's no one to fill up your calendar except yourself, so there's a lot more responsibility. But at the same time, you've got to still go about in a systematic fashion. On the other part is the financial side. A lot of people, I feel, and corporate professionals at a higher experience level find it extremely difficult to get off the horse because they get used to a certain amount of money coming in every month, right? And nobody can deny that it gives you immense pleasure to see the cash balance getting credited at the end of the month, and you being able to enjoy all of that, right? So basically, look, when you make a transition as an entrepreneur, you've got to make that leap also in your mind that that's not going to come in. And you're going to have a period where you're going to be surviving on your savings. You're going to be pursuing your dream. And if you find that the answer to that question, which is, do I find this still satisfying? And the answer is yes, then I think you should make that leap. But if you find yourself saying, hey, I don't know, I'm not sure, then there might be stumbling blocks in the way, and I would really advise people not to take that step, because then it's very difficult at senior levels to sort of reverse your way back into the game, with corporate life. So I think it's in my case it was thought out. I was having some entrepreneurial experience before, early on in my career, and I felt that now the Indian ecosystem was very, very vibrant. The global ecosystem is extremely vibrant as well. There was no dearth of capital or talent which was willing to enter. There were young people, and through my investing experience, which has been over the last 1 year or so, and in my private investing experience, which has been about a total of 4 years, I've been seeing that people with different experience levels, not just the very young and out of the campus sorts, but people who are mid-career, people who are end of career, all sorts of people are sort of jumping in. So what does that mean? It means that we have a very vibrant ecosystem now at play, both globally and locally. And I just wanted to be a part of that in my own way, right? And I felt that I would, if I was not to be a part of it, and I asked myself that question, that 5 years later, if I was to look back and said, hey, did I miss the bus somewhere? And would I regret this? And the answer was yes, absolutely. I would really regret not sort of diving right into it. So I guess that's why I'm here.
Wow. So, based off your answer right now, you're the total opposite of the typical person that's from India. That's a very risk-averse person. You're the total opposite of that.
I think there are many more like me, and even more risk-taking people. I'm just the tip of the iceberg, I must assure you. So, yeah, there's entrepreneurs over here creating big success stories. Walmart's just invested big time into an Indian e-commerce company, as you know. So, and there are more success stories on the way. There's tremendous amount of interest. I think we are. I would say we've reached some sort of a tipping point in the Indian ecosystem, and we are seeing that the millennials, the Gen X, the Gen Ys, they're all wanting to now, at least a section of them, they can't hold themselves back.
Right.
And there are support enablers. There are mentors, there's capital, there is courses you can do, there is places where you can co-work. WeWork is here, right? And it's growing. It's growing at a phenomenal pace in India. And it's been driven by not the traditional established companies, but by entrepreneurs, right? Because they find it a great place to work. They would much rather not work in those sort of free entrepreneurship defined era and surroundings of, and what was called offices. So people are very happy to bring their pets to work, hang out in a sort of a school campus kind of a scenario near a pantry, hook onto the internet, and start working from there, right? And interact with people they never met before. Now, that's very unlike working spaces as we know it. So I think there's a revolution of sorts, which is happening, at least in India at the moment. And we're all whoever's finding the answers to those questions that I just shared with you to be in the right direction, they're all jumping in.
Well, I definitely know if you're at the head of it, or at least one of the heads, and educating the Indians over there, people about entrepreneurship, definitely heading in the right direction.
Yeah, I'm happy to be part of it. Yeah.
So in Orios Ventures, one of the concepts you guys use a lot is called a misfit. We're searching for the next misfit. So the question is, first of all, what is a misfit? Because everyone has a different definition. And is someone born a misfit, or can they become a misfit?
Interesting one. So we at Orios look for misfits because misfits are the ones who have tremendous self-belief, right? And they start off with an idea, right? And they want to create big and large companies out of that. They absolutely want to pursue their idea turn it into an execution that is going to excite consumers and disrupt the way things have been done. A bit before other people are able to realize that this is what they wanted in the first place. So I think in that sense, they are misfits because they come up with ideas before others can recognize that to be the most obvious truth. They have tremendous self-belief. They stand out from the crowd. They have the passion to go and pursue their dreams despite people saying, "Hey, I don't think this is going to work." Right? So you're a misfit. Yeah, you're coming out. Yeah. So you come up with an impractical idea, which is seemingly impractical at that time, but you have tremendous self-belief and passion to follow that through and create something that is extraordinary. So that's how we define a misfit, and we're absolutely in the business of backing misfits.
Wow. Now, if someone, like I mentioned before, if I wanted to become a misfit, if someone wanted to become a misfit, is no playbook. There's no certain steps you can take. But it's more about, like you mentioned, we're just jumping in and starting something, taking that risk and going ahead, whatever that vision is you have in mind you want to create, taking the risk, plunging in and doing that. And that obviously makes me, hopefully that makes me a misfit. Hopefully.
Well, no one's born a misfit. I don't think you can, sort of attitudinally sort of administer a group of statements and get a yes or no and say, hey, you're going to grow up to be a misfit. I don't think we can do some sort of a personality battery and sort of get that output. But having said that, this is a unique calling, right? Everyone's not wired to be an entrepreneur, and everyone's not wired to be an entrepreneur of the degree of a misfit. That you come up with something so unique and you have such tremendous belief in it that you're the only one who's pursuing it at that time, and everyone around you is kind of telling you that it's going to fail, and yet you're sort of putting your time, energy, and money behind it. So I think it's an internal calling, right? And I would link it to tremendous self-belief. That's where it all starts.
Wow.
So all kinds of people can sort of acquire it, and they can run into it at any point of time. I don't think there's a secret sauce which makes people a misfit.
Right. It's more about all the work we're putting into it, excuse me, and literally hustling it out and having that relentless pursuit of not necessarily perfection, but of progress and continuing moving forward. And that you eventually could come over there. So which entrepreneurs, do you consider like a misfit?
Well, we in Orios have backed many misfits. I think you'll see those examples on our website. There are many companies. I won't mention them all one by one. It'll take a lot of time, but I think there is enough, misfits in the Indian economy. We talked about large companies that have been created out of here: the Zomatos, Paytms, Flipkarts, and we have ourselves in our portfolio. We have Pharmacy, Pretty Secrets, Yum Lane, and many more. So I think there are tremendous, there's no dearth of examples of the number of misfits that are operating right now with their companies and creating success stories around the world, and certainly in India.
Right. So let's go back. Where do you see from your point of view now at Orios, and you're a private investor now, VC? Where do you see the startup ecosystem in India heading? In what direction?
I think the startup now, I would say, as I say in tennis, in the second set. So the first wave of entrepreneurs was targeting the first 50 to 100 million people who lived in the top 6 cities. They were essentially English speaking. There are about 175 million people who speak, read, write English in India. And we're a country of slightly over 1 billion people. So there's a tremendous number of people who don't actually understand, speak, and write English. And we have over 25 languages and innumerable dialects in the country. The next wave of the venture ecosystem in India is going to see startups that are going to create big success stories around the second set, which is the next 300 million consumers. So these consumers are going to be not about English. Their language is going to be their local language. Their needs are going to be different from getting a point-to-point taxi in a congested city. Their needs are going to be around education, healthcare, getting access to credit. I don't think many people know it around the world, but we have less than 10% penetration of insurance, health insurance in the country. We have less than, maybe 10% penetration of formal lending or formal credit in the country in this segment of people. Our school education system needs a lot of repairs in that segment. The first 50 and the 100 million people have access to a lot more resources than this. And the aspirers in the middle class, as I would call them, this next 300 million, they're absolutely aspiring for a better life, and they have every right to access a better life. Now, what's happened infrastructurally is that smartphone prices have never been lower. Today, you can buy a smartphone in India for less than $100. You have access to fantastic data speeds at the lowest prices ever in India. People are paying less than $5 to get access to 2 GB of data per day. And the amount of data that's going through mobile phones has tremendously increased. So unlike the US, and I don't know whether you would know about it or whether anybody would sort of have noted this fact, but unlike the US, unlike the Western world and developed world, 80% of internet usage in India is through mobile phones, which is quite unlike the US, where it's less than 40%, because most of the internet is consumed through laptops and desktops. So there's a whole generation of Indians, a whole segment of Indians, these next 300 million, who've practically jumped onto the internet just through a 6-inch screen. They're not used to typing. The English keyboard doesn't make any sense to them. So they're seeing content, they're relating with the internet in their own unique ways, in their own language, and the way they understand it. So I feel that the opportunity out there for the India venture ecosystem is just started, and it's going to really blossom and maybe explode. I would use that term. Over the next 10 years, I think we're going to see phenomenal growth in startups which are targeting these segments which have never been touched before, simply because they're now accessible by internet through the mobile phones, and we will see a very different take on the business models than what we have seen globally, as indeed we have seen in India as well.
Right. Yeah, it's an incredible hypothesis, and I totally agree. And because of that, the innovation you have in India right now, let's say in banking, in healthcare, in shopping, e-commerce, the innovation there is on par to the rest of the world, let's say America, Israel, and anywhere else. And even sometimes, I would say, it's getting even better to a certain degree, because of people are coming onto the internet the first time through mobile. So the innovation that you're creating over there is just insanely ahead to a certain degree, and it definitely will get there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, Fran, you'll see that, look, out of constraints comes out the best of innovation, right? And the Indian startup ecosystem in the last sort of 10 years saw companies around the first 50 to 100 million people who behaved very similar to their counterparts across the world, because they were accessing the same kind of lifestyle, and they were globally traveled. They had similar problems, aspirations, desires, and gaps. Now what's happening is that you're targeting the next 300 million, which is a segment of population which has a completely different set of constraints, and their needs are almost basic in nature. So the models around them are going to be requiring to be far more innovative. It is not going to be just about putting something conveniently in a window in an app and making a consumer transact, and the consumer goes, wow, I'm going to save some time because, I can use that for whatever, for recreation or for taking a holiday or something, and it's made my life much easier. So made my life easier has a very different connotation in this segment and this audience. They simply did not have access to certain things that were available to the first 50 to 100 million all the time. So it is not about conveniently accessing the same thing. It is about accessing something for the first time, right? It's very different. So you're accessing a healthcare package, you're accessing a healthcare insurance, you're accessing a credit for the first time, formal credit, because you were always, sort of strapped for credit, and you had to go to informal credit sources, which were abnormally high rates and you didn't have any other option because banks and financial companies were simply ignoring you, and they didn't think that you were credit worthy. Education. Everybody, I think, in India, particularly knows, and around the world, I think the whole middle class knows that education is a passport to a better lifestyle, right, and to prosperity. So it opens doors for you. So how do you access that? So I think technology and innovative ideas using technology will help this segment of population overcome the challenge of distance that they had built in their mind with respect to the top cities, saying, hey, I can't reach there, I can't afford that place, I can't afford to be there, I can't access that, but I want it. So now, through innovative models, you'll be able to access pieces of it at the prices which you want, and almost be able to access that piece which is going to be more useful to you. So that's I think is the innovation that the new companies will have to do.
Right. Wow. I'm surprised, based on just what you said, that more people are not tapping into all this, either I know the SoftBank and the other venture capitalists, but I'm surprised more people are not tapping into everything that's going on over there and coming in.
Well, yeah, look, I'm sure they've got their eyes trained on it. So I wouldn't call myself the Pied Piper or anything, but I think everybody's got their eyes trained on this, and everyone's hunting for the right entrepreneurs, the right teams, the right models to invest in. And we at Orios have certainly been, sort of speaking about it in whatever forums we can. We've spoken in media enough about it. You'll see my various parts of these quotations going out in various media releases whenever I've been sort of getting an opportunity to do that. So our focus is definitely the next 300 million.
I'm going to send everyone your way. You guys definitely make a difference. So as you mentioned, more people are getting involved now. People are starting to realize you have SoftBank, you have Sequoia, you have ASO. A lot of venture capitalists from Silicon Valley are setting up shop in India. So the whole innovation that's coming about, people are starting to tap on. Like you mentioned before, Flipkart, and they have Oreo, which just raised a tremendous amount, and Warren Buffett investing in Paytm, and then you have Ola. So people are starting to catch on that India is the next breadth of innovation. Eventually, I would say that India will probably become the second biggest economy in the world after China in the next 5 to 10 years. And everything.
Yes, that's absolutely correct. Look, we're already the third largest economy in purchasing power parity terms, and there's every bit of sort of economic data which is pointing in that direction. I think we will soon cross the largest number of people on the planet who can speak English.
Wow. I'm surprised that you're not a professor or giving classes in college and all that.
Well, my dad was, so there's never saying never. So
you have to. You have so much knowledge that people really need to tap into it. You have to spread it out more. Give a class on entrepreneurship or something. It's incredible what you have.
Well, I'm going to take that idea. I think build on that a bit further and see what I can do about it. So I think you've hit a nerve over there.
Yeah. So let me ask you that. Who are some of the people that have made a difference in your life?
So I think my parents definitely made the biggest difference in my life. I think some of the managers that I worked with and some of the people I hold high over there who guided me during my sort of ups and downs, people who guided me very early on in my career. I think I give a lot less credit to them usually, but but when I look back and analyze, if I hadn't got that kind of support or I hadn't got those kind of knocks, then I wouldn't have been what I am today. And certainly towards the last if I see the last 4 or 5 years, I think what stood me in great stead is also my wife. So she had a great role to play in it, and she's been very supportive because switching over from corporate life is to that of being an entrepreneur and being at large can financially mean very different things. But yeah, so I think we see support from various many quarters.
Wow, that's incredible. And what would you say are some of the books that influence your way of thinking?
I must confess, look, I'm not a very big daily reader of sorts. I do read a lot of posts. I do read a lot of comments, articles. I do read, various phrases. But yeah, Good to Great is something that's influenced me. some of the learnings around that, I think time management has become extremely important. So it may sound very cliched, but Stephen Covey's book really stands out, and how you can prioritize into things that are urgent and important, and not urgent and not important, and how you go after things which are important but not urgent, so that they don't become urgent. That's always been sort of my guiding force, because all of us have limited span of time, right? And we got to make the best use of it. So I think that's one
message. Looking back now after this really distinguished career, and that's just beginning again. He's starting a new career within venture capital and investing in a startup, which is totally separate. So looking back now from a post-college, right, Anup just graduating, what message would you tell your younger self?
What message would I tell others, or tell myself?
No, tell yourself.
Oh, tell myself. Oh, okay. Well, this is almost like being born again, I would say. So, it's like you, as I was telling you, this is like pressing the reset button, right? And I think there is so much change that has happened around us that it is almost impossible for any of us not to press that button, right? You cannot continue to think and lead your life the same way it was 20 or 30 years ago, right? The things have fundamentally changed. And it's important to recognize that. And I wouldn't say up your game, but I would say just be in the game, right? And enjoy learning new things. And that's what a reset button really brings about. So I would tell myself, hey, enjoy this like any other adventure in life. Life is an adventure in any case. You don't know what you're going to get next minute. You've got to manage everything that comes along, right? And this is a fantastic time to be in. I think we're very lucky to be alive during this time, because there's so many changes which are taking place. So one will be, shooting yourself in the foot if you're not participating in it, and you're closing the windows and closing the doors and saying, "Oh, I'm happy where I am, and I refuse to participate in this, and I'm going to, not recognize that this is all happening." So this is happening, and life's changed fundamentally for us much more in the last 5 to 10 years than it's changed in the last 50 years.
Right.
And therefore, and this change is going to be fast. It's going to be faster than ever before in the next 5 years. Mm-hmm. So we're talking about automation. We're talking about artificial intelligence. We're talking about electric vehicles. We're talking about driverless vehicles. We're talking about concepts that we could never imagine before, and all of these are going to come alive right here in front of our eyes. So I think a very new world is going to emerge. There's going to be a lot more technology in our lives, and therefore, it is extremely exciting. And I would just tell myself, be a lifelong student.
Right. Wow. That's incredible. And I think it also parlays into entrepreneurship in the sense that right now is the easiest time to start a company. You have everything, any type of software you need to start a company you have out there already. Obviously, you can build upon that, but to have an excuse, this is obviously if you're an entrepreneur, but there's no excuse now if you have a dream or an idea to go ahead and launch it, because you have so much support out there. If you were to look back when you're found right after college, then it was so hard. Now you have everything out there, everything's accessible. It's the easiest time to start. So just go ahead and start.
Oh, absolutely. I think I couldn't have put it much better. So I tell all the people with great ideas in mind to just launch themselves. Right. Right now, everything is stacked around you in the perfect place. You can't be in a better place at the right time. Right. If you want to be an entrepreneur, right now is the time to launch 1,000 chips. You will get funded. You will find the mentors. You will find the enablers. There are people graduating out of schools and colleges who don't want to work for the large companies. They want to work for startups, right? They want to do their own thing. They don't want a 9-to-5 job. People are leaving, jobs after 2 or 3 years, which were seemingly coveted by their parents. And, there would be social calling cards and saying, "Hey, I don't like it. I don't like this kind of life. It doesn't give me any high. I don't find any sense of fulfillment." So, and you yourself are an example of that, isn't it?
Yeah. So this has been, before we, I know you're pressed for time, so we have to finish up soon shortly, but what are some outside passions you have outside of venture capital and startups?
Oh, okay. So I love being near the water. So I
Okay.
love kayaking. So I go kayaking every year in some parts of Asia. I find Asia extremely nice. It's very warm. The waters are warm as well. So I love being in the ocean. I love water sports. So that's my passion as well. So I think that's my overriding passion above everything else. Food is my next passion, and that's why I work for Yum as well. So I love experiencing cultures through food. So I absolutely walk the markets and learn more and more about different foods and what goes behind them and behind making them and why do they look like what they look like. So I'm extremely excited about these two things. So yeah, I try and engineer a holiday around these things while trying to convince a family it's a great one for them as well.
So wow. So the best. Tell me the best food you ever tasted besides your wife's, obviously, because your wife is probably the best cook. The best food you ever tasted.
Well, the best food that I've ever tasted, yeah, it's been locally made Thai food. I absolutely love Thai food. And I can't imagine food without spices. First of all, so I'm not a great guy around bland food. And Thai food is extremely, it's extremely flavorful. They can't prepare something with just one spice in it. They've got to have five or six different things in it, and you got to find your way through it and almost sense what all have they put in it. There's got to be a bit of lemongrass, got to be a bit of basil, got to be a bit of spices, got to be a bit of chilies, a bit of sugar. So it's so colorful. So I love colorful and flavorful food and never get tired of it. So I think street food in Thailand is something that I really like, and in Asia in general, of course, it's something that I really enjoy as well. But yes, I'm equally at home with I would say Mediterranean food. Yeah.
Wow, that's been great. So Anup, this has been absolutely phenomenal. I've learned a tremendous amount. If I respect you, I love to call you Professor Anup because you have so much knowledge and so much to give, and so much that people can learn from. And I am excited for the fact that people are tapping into your knowledge there, through Orios and through other ventures that you're doing, and through people that are associated together with you. It's incredible. So really,
Thank you very much. Yeah, it's wonderful talking to you. Yeah.
thank you so much for doing this, and I'm sure people are going to learn a tremendous amount from it.
Hey, thanks a lot. And do tell me, how you're going to be, sort of placing this, and how you're thinking of using. I'm sure you're talking to others as well, and how you're looking at sort of compiling this. And I'm sure you're onto some big idea.
Thank you.